For about 17 years I've had this CPU just sitting in a drawer. It's got a bit of a heritage for me. It's the CPU from my first computer, a machine that my parents picked up from my father's place of work, which was shot over jet. It's a New Zealand jet boating company, operates here in Queenstown in New Zealand. Here's a rough clip of what they do. They throw tourists through the canyons. The jet boat was developed by Sir William Hamilton in 1954 to get up very shallow rivers. So yeah, the CPU did come from my first computer, from that business, and here is, well, it's an AMD 133MHz CPU. I figured this might be fun to try at some point as well, so I have that, but it's almost my 30th, so I figured after 17 years of sitting, let's put it to use. And we'll be putting it in this motherboard. It's a Lucky Star motherboard, model LS486E, revision C. And here it is right next to a Socket 7 Baby AT motherboard, and it is small. This thing is actually a really small motherboard. It's packed with stuff. It uses a chipset by SIS, the 85C496. I was trying to read that there. And of course it has the Socket 3 CPU socket there, which is quite nice to have, very standard. It's got inbuilt IDE support, which is quite nice. You don't need a external card to make that work, something that older 486s sort of needed. Undescriptive RAM, I don't know what brand that is, but it's got about 16 megabytes on board, supporting up to 128 megabytes of memory on this motherboard, and of course I have the user's guide, very handy indeed. We're starting off with the first card. It's a Cirrus Logic graphics card. It's a GD446 PCI card, and for sound I have just this generic-y Sound Blaster Vibra 16. It's not fantastic, but it does have at least a genuine Yamaha OPL chip on board, which is quite nice. They can be a bit noisy, but yeah. And for storage, we've got a compact flash to IDE adapter. I thought about using a normal drive, but honestly, to get things off and on the machine, this is a lot easier. For the case, something very special. I've had this full tower AT case just sort of sitting there, and this thing's tall, really tall, but I mean, it's got, it came with a 5.25-inch floppy disk drive and a 3.5-inch floppy disk drive there. Built in. I added the CD-ROM drive, and I've tested those already, and they do work, which is really nice when, you know, a case you buy comes with some stuff. And it's actually pretty clean. Around the front, just a few marks as you saw there. Around the back, it's actually very clean as well. It doesn't look like the power supplies had a lot of hours on it as well, which is quite nice because I don't have many spare AT power supplies. Here it is next to my normal baby AT case, and you can see the height difference on this thing. It is tall. So yeah, we're going to give it a clean and prepare it for the parts that I want to put into it. It's really just all the lettering around the front that I wanted to get rid of, which I didn't fully get rid of, but looks a lot better. And I'm probably just going to leave it yellowed. Around the back, it didn't actually need much cleaning at all, just a general wipe down. Alright, now down to my favourite part. It's fitting the parts into the case, which is, you know, really neat case. It's nice and tall. It's hard to find full tower AT cases these days. Sounding pretty old here, but yeah, they're just not out there. But this one has a really neat feature, and a lot of them also have this, is the removable motherboard tray. It's just held in with 3 screws, so yeah, you can bolt the tiny motherboard to this gigantic piece of steel, or whatever it is. Well, after struggling with those power connectors for a little bit, sometimes they go in easy, sometimes they don't, yeah, it's just starting to fit all the spaghetti inside the case. Of course, sticking my noggin in there, but you'll see here when I'm fitting this sound card, the motherboard's sort of slumping, and that's just because it's held in with literally one screw. That's all this board supports. So the cards kind of prop the board up. It's very awkward, but you know, a bit of finessing, everything went in nicely and made good connections, which is what it's all about. And now for the video card there, we're just gonna sort of jam that in there. It's kind of cool putting this thing together after just having this CPU just sit around for so long. But yeah, we've got the I/O headers now. This motherboard supports a 2-pin turbo switch, and I've got a 3-pin one. Of course, I messed up here, and like you'll see me putting this reset one on, I actually missed the pin below it. Good thing the camera was sort of where I needed to be, but nevertheless, got it all sorted. Fitting the sound input for the sound card, and I needed some pins, so instead of robbing them off something that works, I've got this dead motherboard that's had serious battery corrosion. You'll see it's just eaten away at all the traces, it's gone under chips, so just a bit of solder to dislodge those headers that I needed, a bit of solder braid or wick, and that's what we need there. And this is for the compact flash adapter. I don't know why they never do this, but there's no header to plug the hard disk activity light in, and for some reason every one of them I've got, it doesn't work through the motherboard. So anyway, just go direct off the LED header on the LED pins on the card itself, and just like that, it's good to go. Not the nicest soldering job, but I mean it works. So yeah, I'm putting that in. I also have to, you know, always like loosen the screws and align the adapter up just to make sure the card goes in and out nicely. And I thought I'd try a little bit of cable management, which is something I'm not very good at, but yeah, we're just gonna sort of tuck that all in there. It's a big case, but yeah, the ribbon cables, they fill it up pretty quick. Alrighty, well what I'm going to do is power it up and see if it smokes, but thankfully no smoke, so nothing's shorted. 66 megahertz showing there with the 16 megabytes of RAM. What we're going to do now is just throw the lid back on it now that it's perfect, and put some screws in it, and yeah, have a play around with the machine and see what we can do with it. One thing which I forgot to do is record how silent this machine is. It's very, very quiet. I think it's just because there's no fans in it, well, apart from the power supply, but yeah, no hard drive and no CPU fan means it's really quiet. It's actually really strange how quiet it is. But yeah, what we're going to do now is put Windows 98 First Edition on it, which is something that you probably wouldn't want to do on a 486 with 66 megahertz. But there's a good reason for it. Basically, when I first got my very first machine, which had this exact, the CPU in it that we're using today, had Windows 98 installed onto it, and I believe it was First Edition because the machine, I think, only had about 8 to maybe 16 megabytes of memory. It's probably 8, I think. It was very, very slow. And of course, no sound card, which, I didn't realize at the time. But yeah, I wanted to see how long it took to get it installed and how slow it was, and if it was as slow as I remember. And of course it was, and it was extremely slow. It took about an hour and a half from CD-ROM to install the whole operating system. I should have just copied the files to the compact flash adapter in hindsight, but wish I did, but I forgot to actually install it from the hard drive. But here it is. We've got Windows 98 First Edition, 16 megabytes of memory showing there. Of course, everything detected fine. Here's the maze screensaver, gives you an idea of the ripping performance of the machine. Yeah, not very fast at all, so let's try a game, and the first thing I can think of was hover, and yes, the turbo button is selected properly. Here it is in windowed mode, not very fast. And of course things get worse when you maximise the window, and definitely dropping frame rates here. And the game is running 256 colours. I've got the system set to 256 colours. But you can see why they were pushing the Pentium so hard at the time, because yeah, the performance of this wasn't so good, and also why people stuck to DOS for so long. Speaking of which, got DOS 6.22 installed with Windows 3.11. And I've already done all the prep work, so we can get straight into some games and see how it performs. It's quite funny, I actually hadn't played this level before, and I was not expecting this bird to come down and just like claw me to death there. Rose of the Triad, of course, is a classic. This is where I wished I had one of those Dream Blast X2s fitted, because this game's got an awesome soundtrack. Yep, SimCity Works a treat, and my next one, which I've been playing quite a bit of recently, I haven't played it before, is Wolfenstein 3D. If you guys haven't seen BigMacDavis' YouTube channel, he does a walkthrough on this game, and I really enjoy his walkthroughs. They're really well done, so I'll link his channel in the description. But I've been playing this on a gamepad, which makes it a whole lot more playable. But yeah, it's been interesting playing this one, that's for sure. Definitely enjoying getting a few levels of this under my belt. It's actually a really fun game with a gamepad and, you know, good walkthrough guide. The next is GTA 1, the original Grand Theft Auto. This actually needs a 75 megahertz CPU, 16 megabytes of RAM, 1 megabyte basic compatible SVGA card. Recommended is 166 megahertz. So yeah. We're really pushing this. This is actually running in the high color mode at the moment, and then we'll try and knock it down to the lower color. But here's the frame rate difference. well, we'll give it a crack and we'll knock it down to the low color mode to get some frame rates. It also supports a 3D FX card, which I didn't realize it did, so I might have to try that out on my other machine with the Voodoo one, which is that little baby AT case that I showed earlier. Frame rate, yeah, we're getting maybe 2 FPS more. I mean, when you're splitting it like that, yeah, any gain, yeah, I mean, it's nice, but it's still not very playable. I had a lot of trouble driving, and it's already hard enough driving around in this game. But it has a good soundtrack at least, you know, the end credits here. Alright, I think it's time to put the icing on this cake with a fresh case badge. I've had these things sort of sitting around, so just been waiting for the opportunity to put one in. And here it is, and I have fresh Pentium stickers as well, so don't worry about that. But yeah, I think it looks really cool with that new badge in there. I really like how it just fits and yeah, completes the look. But yeah, thanks to everyone for watching. It was great putting this CPU to use. It's been sitting for probably 17 years, maybe 18, I don't know, a very, very long time. It's pretty much the only part I've got left of that old machine I had as a kid. But yeah, pretty cool 30th present for myself, putting that back together and putting it to use, and of course putting a giant, a very small motherboard into this giant case. So yeah, that was funny. But yeah, there's some projects I think I'm going to do with this coming up. I might try and fit a 100 MHz CPU into it. I've also got that AMD 133 MHz CPU to play with, so I thought that would be kind of neat to try out. But for now, I'm very happy with it, and thanks everyone for watching. Stay safe, stay sane, and catch you guys soon.